Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I am George Mayer, the Director of Sales and Watch Buying for Watchbox. And today we have a special guest with us, the head of watches for the Americas for Phillips Auction House, Paul Boutros. Paul, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me, George. Pleasure to see you.
Likewise. So Paul and I met one another over 10 years ago now. It's crazy that it was that long ago. And when we met, Paul was the head of the Weenies, the watch enthusiasts of New York, and an avid collector, but he was not in the watch industry, and now he's very much a part of the watch industry. So this will be great. Before we start, I always think it's fun to have a wrist check, so I'll get us started. I'm wearing my titanium Octa Perpetuelle Journe on the titanium bracelet. You know, rumor has it only 10 or so of these bracelets were made. Special watch for me. Wore this on my wedding day.
Amazing.
So,
congrats. That's a very special piece.
Thank you.
I too am wearing Journe today. It's a 38 millimeter platinum brass movement resonance with the white gold dial. An old favorite that I bought quite some time ago.
So let's get us started with, when did you know that you might want to leave your job and get into the watch industry full time?
Oh, that's a great question, George. So if we look back quite a bit, sorry to give you maybe a bit more information than you asked for, but I started collecting quite young. It was back in 1986. I was 10 years old. It was a joint passion between my father and me. He and I would hunt the world for watches starting at age 10 and until I was about 17. And that's when I went into college and I studied engineering. So watches sort of took a back seat. They wouldn't come back to be a big part of my life until I finished graduate school in about 2002. So my father had just passed away in 2001, late 2001. And you know, I look at the collection of watches when soon after he passed away, and I was overcome with emotion. And I realized that these timepieces, this journey we had together back during my childhood, were the source of some of the happiest memories with my dad. And at that point, I jumped in head over heels into the world of watches. Once again, far more than when I was a kid. As I was finished with grad school, I had time on my hands. I began writing about watches and actually taking pictures of watches. And I would share my stories about timepieces I liked on the discussion forums that were popular, like timezone.com and the purists. And soon enough, I started writing freelance for publications, which asked me to start writing for them, including International Watch, IW magazine, which used to be affiliated, I believe, with Govberg. And through that press, credential, I began being invited to SIHH and to Baselworld, and got immersed in watch culture and met the people, met the brands, the people behind the brands, and fellow collectors, and started to really enjoy the industry. And I figured, you know what? Maybe one day I leave my day job at Lockheed Martin and join the watch world. But, you know, the opportunity would have to be right. And sure enough, I was still out there. More and more opportunities started to knock, and the opportunities were getting better and better, when finally the best opportunity came my way. And that was back in 2014, when I got a call from Orel Bax, who explained to me that he was starting an all-new watch department at Phillips. He had been working at a competing auction house at Christie's until 2013. And he really built up that department and wanted to do something new. And he called me and he said, Paul, I want you, because you're a collector, you're not an industry insider, and help me build this department. We'll be focused on highest quality timepieces, scholarship, transparency, and client service. And I met him, I met the team in Geneva, and within a month, I quit my day job. I was absolutely convinced this was the right thing to do. As an engineer, I love to build things, and this was an opportunity to build a watch department from a clean sheet of paper. And even though I'm doing it as a day job, it's not like I'm working. I'm very fortunate to be able to work on a product that I adore so much, working with people that are, you know, overall just amazing to work with. So yeah, I feel very fortunate.
Absolutely. We at Watchbox are a pre-owned platform, and we sell direct to consumer off of advertised prices, videos, reaching out to existing customers, referrals. How would you say pre-owned watch sellers and auction houses complement one another?
You know, it's one of the great things about this industry is it's symbiotic. We as the auction house, we serve the community. So we work with brands for historic pieces. They may have questions about watches their clients bring to them. We work, of course, with collectors, helping them build collections and find the right watches and also to sell. And we work with the trade, dealers, authorized dealers, pre-owned dealers. Sometimes they encounter a timepiece they're not sure of and they ask us for valuations. And in the reciprocal manner, sometimes we have clients seeking a particular watch and we reach out to our friends in the trade, like Watchbox, like Govberg, in search of a special piece. And when, you know, Watchbox, if you get something great, you, like many other dealers, sometimes you come across something very important and you realize that you could benefit greatly from global competition in selling you know, a rare and obscure timepiece.
How do you advise buyers and sellers both before and during an auction? I just remember you like during, you know, the famous Paul Newman auction and some of the other ones. You're on the phone. You know, I think you're probably in the heat of battle then. But you know, tell us about, you know, the preparation and then also while in the moment.
Yeah, great question. So, of course, auction has two sides. You have the selling side and you have the buying side. So, for the selling side, these are when clients consign watches to us. We first, you know, start out by looking and examining the timepiece to see if we're the right place for them to sell the watch. We may not have clients for a particular timepiece, and we probably would say, we'll explain that, hey, we're not the right venue to sell the watch. Or the watch may not be high quality enough. We have a very high quality standard. And believe it or not, we reject 70 to 80% of the watches proposed to us because they're not a right fit. We are searching the world for the finest timepieces. And that could be a $5,000 watch or a watch that runs into the 8 figures. So we're quite judicious in what we choose to offer. So when clients come to us with a timepiece, we also ask them, what's your expectation? So we work with them to determine the right auction estimate, if it is a watch for us, and we know we have clients for it, and we never want to disappoint. So we give them sort of an auction estimate, and if they ask, we suggest what the estimated hammer price could be so that they go in eyes wide open. The last thing we want to do is disappoint a client who's entrusted us with their precious timepiece. So that's on the selling side. For the buying side, so the way I work with my clients who are interested in bidding, you know, we'll explain to them it's important that you reach out to a specialist because you get the behind the scenes information that's not always in the catalog. And we can explain, oh, this watch comes from the original owner. The original owner bought it 25 years ago and the watch broke and it's sat in a drawer for 25 years unused. That's a great thing because a broken watch is a great watch for us because it's unused for so many years.
Well, there are definitely some commonalities between us there. I mean, I think the worst thing you can do as a salesperson is push and put somebody into a watch that they may not like. That's the worst feeling I could have if somebody is upset about something that I sold them. Like I just, you know, that's the last thing I want to have happen. And then, you know, I always tell people we have a 7-day full refund return policy. So send it back if you're not happy with it. With auctions, I imagine it's a little different because when somebody pulls the trigger, you're obliged to take it. So I guess you just have to, you know, in the heat of the moment, make sure they're not too trigger happy. I mean, while it's happening, do you have people, you know, if somebody's set on a watch, let's say, and somebody's bid it up higher than expected, you know, do they call you in the heat of the mix? Is that who you're on the phone with? And they're saying, like, Paul, like, I really want the watch, but it's gotten a little crazy. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, that happens. It happens all the time. We have people who call ahead, you know, pre-register and let us know what lots they're interested in bidding on. We have some clients who are watching the auction and realize, oh my gosh, that's a watch I want, and I forgot about registering, or I had no idea that this was in the sale and I want it now. And they'll call us right in the heat of the mix, and we say, stand by, we'll get you registered, and we'll call you when the time comes. So we're there to support, no matter what, even if it's a last minute request for bidding, and we'll real time give them the advice. Hey, I saw this watch, you should be aware, it's got a scratch here, it's got a scratch there, but the watch is amazing and I know you're going to love it. So we're going to give you that information if we can, down to the last second just before you bid.
That's awesome. So auction results seem to have really changed the market for some brands. I mean, most recently, I would say FP Journe's had a major uptick due to auction results. Just at the end of last year, I remember clear as day, we had a 38 millimeter rose gold resonance, gold movement, red dial, posted on our website, no box, no papers, for $50,000. It had been there for, I want to say it was 400 days. It was definitely over a year.
Wow.
No one wanted the watch. Then a brass movement resonance went for $250,000. And I remember getting a phone call from one of our sales associates over in Hong Kong. The auction was in Hong Kong. And she says to me, my customer's really upset that he missed out on the red 38 millimeter resonance gold movement. I said, excuse me, we've had that watch for forever. Like, what happened? The watch double sold solely as a result of that auction result. It changed the market. Like, the consumer perception changed immediately because somebody was willing to pay $250 for a 38 millimeter resonance. Granted, it was a gold dial brass movement, but people then look and see, oh, Watchbox has a resonance available for $50,000. I'm going to scoop it up. When do you think an auction result is an outlier, and when do you think it sets a new normal for trade values?
That is a great question. For rare and highly sought after pieces that don't come up often at auction, like, for example, early resonance, it comes down to 2 or 3 people who really want the piece and can drive up the price. Now, whether that is a high watermark that can't be approached again, or if it sets, a new normal, that depends on the model and the strength of the model, and the strength of the community behind the model. So with respect to Journe, there's simple economics at play here. The supply is naturally limited. And the earliest pieces, the first generation Resonance, Tourbillon, Octa, from 2000 when they first were introduced until 2004, he was using brass movements, and then he switched over to gold movements. And so there are just a limited supply of brass movement Journes made for only 4 years. So as we're very public, so auction results are public, and they open many people's eyes to watches and watch prices and brands they might not have been paying attention to. And this is one of the things I love best about being in the auction industry, is that we get results, and we get sometimes record-breaking results that attract people to the world of watches. It's always my mission, and it has always been my sense of duty, is to introduce new people to the world of watches. And that's what record-breaking prices do. And, some people may criticize that, and I view it very differently. The watch world is still very young. Collecting wristwatches only began in the 1980s. So it's got many years ahead of it. And it's one of the reasons why I quit my day job, because I firmly believe in the long-term, success and health of this world of collectible watches. But not only in Journe are we seeing increased demand, but for many independents. Hand craftsmanship is becoming more and more sought after. Genuine hand craftsmanship, and those brands with great aesthetics, great watchmaking behind them, and a history of producing great quality. More and more people are seeking those types of watches. So we have seen demand across such independent brands like Roger Smith, like Kari Voutilainen, MB&F even. These brands are seeing a resurgence or a surge of interest in their timepieces, and it's for good reason.
Right. Yeah, I was going to touch on Kari Voutilainen. There's been more and more interest in his watches. Also, Akrivia, Rexepi, I think, is going to be one of the next best watchmakers. I believe trained under Journe, now doing his own thing. It was
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, when I met with him at the last ever Basel, he told me that he has his next 7 years planned, and it was cool hearing that. Because when you're in your infancy stage as a watchmaker, you want to know if it's just hot for a brief period, maybe a couple years, and the novelty effect wears off. But it doesn't sound like that'll be the case with his pieces. Again, supply is so crazy low. I think 20, 25, 30, I don't know, that range, in terms of annual production. And with the whole world, behind it, they're able to, you have high-end collectors from everywhere that are looking for something new, and to get into something new. I mean, the demand outweighs the supply there. He had an amazing result at the Only Watch. I think he was, one of the top 5 highest pieces there. So why do you believe that world record auction results continue to get broken? I mean, you touched on that briefly there, but I mean, back in 2017, you had the Paul Newman Daytona that went for close to 18 million at auction. Then the 6300 in steel, the Grandmaster Chime from Patek Philippe, went for 31 million at the Only Watch. Why do you think we keep hitting new levels?
It's a sign of the growth, the constant, continuous, healthy growth of the world of collectible watches. As I mentioned just before, the world of collectors' watches is young, and like it started in the 1980s, and there were so few people interested in them. And when I was a kid growing up, I was the one freak who liked watches, and I was trying to convince my friends, family, except for my father, but no one would listen. It just wasn't a thing. Then comes the internet in the 90s, and the start of discussion forums, which allowed watch collectors from around the world to find each other, and they would post on discussion forums. A second inflection point comes from social media. 2006, 2007, 2008, the rise of Facebook. Then into 2010s, the rise of Instagram. And of course, the important blogs like Hodinkee, like SJX. This is a whole new set of channels for people to get knowledge and information on watches. And sure enough, watches become popular. Wristwatches become more and more popular, and many more people now have discovered the secret world that we knew so well, and it continues to grow. And I'm so happy about that.
So despite the coronavirus outbreak, brands are starting to come out with new watches for the year in various ways. Watches and Wonders was last week, for instance. What are your favorites that you've seen thus far?
So the Resonance is getting a lot of love in our conversation, but my favorite new release of 2020, hands down, is the all-new 4th generation Resonance that now incorporates 2 remontoir complications and a single mainspring barrel, as opposed to the version that I have in the prior generations, which had 2 separate mainspring barrels and no remontoir. So my preference aesthetically is the original, but I absolutely love the evolution into the 4th generation with the all-new Resonance. I think he hit it out of the park in 2 sizes, 40 and 42 millimeters. Absolutely love it. Yeah. So nice. So on the that's my favorite pick. But I also like what AP has brought out. They reintroduced kind of created a remaster, 01 they call it. It's a reinterpretation of a 1940s 2-tone vintage chronograph that we sold at auction, I believe in 2017. It sold for a very high price, absolutely gorgeous, with an Art Deco 12 at 12 o'clock. With a salmon colored dial, stainless steel case with rose gold lugs, just an awesome aesthetic. And we were so happy to see that they recreated it in a modern version of limited edition of 500 pieces.
Yeah, I saw that auction result when they came out with the new version. I think they only made like 4 pieces or something like that of the original. It was very small, right?
Oh yeah. So the vintage Audemars Piguet watches are extremely rare. chronographs are extraordinarily rare. I think from the 1930s all the way up to the 1970s, they made just over 200 chronographs in total. And we believe that the one that we sold probably was a unique piece.
Oh, wow.
So this new version at 40 millimeters in diameter with a self-winding movement, updated for the modern era, but the dial, really, they nailed it. It looks identical to the original. And they're producing it in a limited edition of 500.
So yeah, I was going to ask you though. I was going to say the original was manual though. Why did they do this one self-winding? Thicker. But I guess you think it's more for the times.
Yes, exactly. It's probably more easily sellable. Not a lot of people like winding their watches, and people probably just say, I want to put it on my wrist and forget about it. So yeah, sign of the times. But I absolutely would have preferred a little bit smaller and a manually wound movement. But hey,
I know there are some purists I know that would say, where's that integrated manual wind chrono? It should be in there. But
exactly. Yeah, I mean, Watches and Wonders itself, the Richemont brands came out with some nice pieces. I don't know about you, George, but I really like the Cartier Privé Tank Asymétrique. I think it's really beautiful, especially the skeleton version. Vacheron came out with a Skeleton Overseas Perpetual.
That was the big winner for me. That's awesome watch.
They nailed that. For me, the best skeletonization work is by both Vacheron Constantin and Patek Philippe. By far, the best. And when you look at the details, it's exquisite. Handcrafted watchmaking at its very best. It's not for everyone's taste, but Vacheron's Perpetual is really a beauty. An unlikely brand that I love watch. It was the Piaget, the Altiplano Ultimate Concept watch. This is the world's thinnest mechanical watch. They created a prototype, I guess it was last year, and figured out how to produce it in volume. So there's 20 of them, I think, being made. And at just a thickness of 2 millimeters, it's pretty incredible. So I like that. It's very expensive, but super cool.
Yeah, no, I saw a picture of it next to another watch, and it's crazy how thin it is relative to your regular thickness on a watch. What is the price point going to be on that?
I think it's a well above 100,000.
Okay,
got it.
Off the
top of my head.
So my next question is a loaded one. We'll see if you personally can swing the market on something for people looking. Hey. So what would you say is the best value in the overall market right now?
Good question. I've got a soft spot for vintage Vacheron Constantin. I think those watches are extremely undervalued. They are extremely well made and very rare and beautiful. And are available at a bargain price. I also like two-tone watches, like two-tone Daytonas, especially Zenith-based Daytonas. You can get a fantastic vintage vibe, early Daytona, the first generation self-winding Zenith-based Daytonas for just over $10,000 if you opt for a two-tone case. The size is great. The look is going to come back, I have a feeling. Similarly, a two-tone Royal Oak, day date moon phase, or just day date, or even just time only two-tone Royal Oak, great watch and great value. Datejusts, Rolex Datejusts, 36 millimeter classic. If you find a vintage one in nice condition, they're absolutely wonderful, and they're so affordable. Especially I have a soft spot for black dials. And if you could find a glossy black dial Datejust, you can't beat it. And it same holds true for a watch you can buy in the store today. The Datejust is such a good watch, and the demand is not so high for them like the sports models. I love the simple blue dial 41 Datejust 41, either on a Jubilee bracelet or the Oyster. I think it's great.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely on all the pieces you just mentioned. The Molt Perpetual Chrono from Vacheron, I think, is one of the greatest bargains right now. You have a absolutely gorgeous watch, Lamagna movement, same movement, similar to the one in the 5970, and you can get that watch may it be yellow gold, even platinum. I mean, in like the 40s. I mean, it's crazy how much value I think there is there. And then yeah, also those older Royal Oaks, some of those like 36 millimeter pieces, like complete calendars. Those are like a dual time. We recently had a gray dial 2-tone Royal Oak dual time, and I was, like at that price point, yeah, what a bargain.
Can't beat them. You can't beat them. And one more brand that especially for the entry level collector, forgive, that's my dog buddy. he's a barker, so you'll hear him in the background. Heuer. I think Heuer is, especially vintage Heuer chronographs. They're great. They have great size, great quality for the money. If you've got a bracelet, Heuer, the bracelets were made by Gay Frere, the same maker of bracelets for Rolex, for Patek Philippe back in the day. I think they're quite undervalued, just like Vacheron, and offer tremendous watch for the money.
Yeah, another watch I remember you wearing personally, just hit me right now, was the Vacheron. What was it, the 222? Is that the correct?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's today it's gained in popularity. I guess when it came out, it was sort of an ugly duckling. It had some quirks. It had a bezel that looked like a bottle cap, the Maltese cross on the top of the lug, close to 5 o'clock. And it was very thin, but really well made, with the caliber 1121, the same movement that was in the Nautilus, first generation Nautilus, and the early Royal Oaks, Royal Oak Jumbos. But yeah, today it's actually quite sought after because it's actually very, very rare.
Right. Another piece
you've got a great memory, George.
Yeah, I think another one that you probably swung the market on, Paul. You were early to that one too. I can speak firsthand. This guy, when he's onto something, it upticks. That's for sure.
Sure. So, don't listen to him. I've got some serious watches that didn't do that.
I haven't seen them yet. You got to show me. You got to tell me about those offline.
I'm good at hiding.
So when does Phillips plan to have their next auctions? Have you set anything in stone? I know, so much uncertainty still. Hopefully better days are ahead for us soon. I mean, this has been such a tough time. When do you think you'll be get back at it?
Yeah, thanks for the question, George. We're we were originally planning to have our auctions this upcoming weekend, May 9th and 10th in Geneva. Obviously, with the coronavirus situation, we had to postpone it. And right now it's scheduled for June 27th and 28th, our Geneva Watch Auction 11 sale, which is going to be a great sale. Thankfully, the watches were all consigned prior to the lockdowns that went across countries. But we're full steam ahead as Switzerland is now lifting their lockdown restrictions, which is a great thing. Everyone's able to go back to the office as of May 11th. And, so long as we can legally hold the sale, we are going to press on. As you have probably seen the same, the passion is just as strong as it's ever been. People are still inquiring with us about buying watches. And we feel that the market is healthy. At any time, if we doubt that the sale could be successful, we would not go forward. Obviously, we had to postpone it for May 9th and 10th because we just didn't think the timing would be right. But we're very optimistic based on client conversations, based on the interest levels, and speaking to our friends in the trade, like you, George, at Watchbox. I'm sure you can say a point or two about the strength you're seeing with watch buying, even during this pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very pleasant surprise how strong the demand is. I mean, people really just love watches. I mean, the passion is alive and well, and it brings people happiness. I mean, during a tough time, during good times, whatever it may be. I mean, it sparks a priceless emotion, and I think now. I mean, I've had several transactions I've made recently where people are saying, "Look, I've been stuck at home and I need something to pick me up." And I talk to them after they get their new watch, and they're elated. And like that's what it's all about, just making people happy and them picking up something that just you can just feel the excitement and the genuine happiness that the item sparks for them. And that's awesome. You know, we all need
exactly. I mean, people have more time on their hands. They're at home. There's no commute. Their work is maybe slower, and in their spare time, they're diving into watches, learning more about things that they wanted to learn about, and they're craving, you know, this interaction. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with collectors, even my colleagues and myself. I'm hunting watches in my spare time. It doesn't stop, and I have more time to do it. And I've seen this across the collecting community, and it just shows you this passion, even in times of trouble. You know, people have the motivation to continue buying.
Another tough question, but I'm enjoying firing them off at you. You've handled them well so far. What's your favorite watch in your personal collection?
So that would be a watch for nerds. And it is a sort of a wolf in sheep's clothes. It's a Rolex QA observatory chronometer made in 1954. A humble 34 millimeter time-only wristwatch that holds a Formula One race car engine inside. It was handcrafted, hand-adjusted by Rolex's top watchmaker of the era. His name was Jean Mathiel. And he built these watches for absolute precision. They went to the Kew Observatory in Teddington, England, shipped from Geneva to England, a tiny movement that passed observatory tests designed for ship marine chronometers. And it received an A certificate, what a big clock used for ships would be tested under. The fact that he was able to do a tiny movement like that and get it to pass the most stringent observatory chronometer certification ever was really incredible. And it's not only amongst the rarest of all Rolex watches, just 24 examples were made. Only about 5 or 6 are known, but it's also amongst the most rarest type of vintage wristwatch ever, a cased observatory chronometer, originally made by the manufacturer.
Wow, super cool. I'm gonna have to see that one day. I've never seen that one before. I didn't even know you had it.
Because it's like a Formula One race car, it's not designed for everyday use. It has such finely finished parts. They're very, very delicate. So a shock can break the parts pretty easily. So it stays tucked away. I wear it on, rare occasions when I know I'm not going to hit anything, especially I'm not going to be drinking or
right.
Careless in any way.
Got it. Super cool. All right, so one more for you before we log off here. What is your Grail watch?
Oh man, there are so many amazing watches out there. It's hard to pick one, but I would say a Patek Philippe reference 1518 in stainless steel, the very first perpetual calendar chronograph model made by Patek Philippe, introduced in 1941. It's such an important watch in the history of wristwatches. It would, set the architecture that's still in use today by the modern Patek Philippe 15270. They've been continuously making these perpetual calendar chronograph models since 1941. And the 1518, the fact that Patek Philippe released it, this flagship model in the heart of World War II, showed so much courage. And they cased 4 of them in stainless steel. We sold one of them, and that was a record breaker at the time for the $11 million price. And just for its importance, for its beauty, watchmaking skill, and rarity, that's a watch for me.
Yeah, that watch is
a dream watch for me.
Yeah. I think it's awesome how Patek Philippe continually goes back to their amazing history for their new models. Like the 5212 is designed off of a model made back in the 1950s. And I think that's going to be something that we see with a lot of the brands moving forward. You probably would agree. I mean, look, the watch that you touched on from AP is a re-edition, remastered watch from many decades prior. I think that people like that. I mean, the consumer likes that now, and it'll only increase the value of those vintage pieces, and for auctions, I would imagine, moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, one thing for collectors to keep in mind is to project in the future. If you see a modern watch, beware of trends. trends tend to go out of style. Think of timeless. If something, if you could project 50 years from now, if that watch will still look good, those are the types of watches that have the best enduring value and the best long-term satisfaction for you. When you look at your timepiece, I mean, I've owned this for maybe 10, almost 15 years, I believe. And I still love it just as much as I did back then. And it looks as relevant today as it did back then. This is the beauty of timeless designs. And these are what the great makers specialize in. They're a little bit more conservative sometimes, but boy, their aesthetic, will endure the test of time.
Awesome. Well, that was outstanding. Paul, I really appreciate you taking the time, opening up with us, all our viewers. I mean, that was some great information. It was awesome learning about more about your past. And yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, George. Wish you well and be healthy. And to all the viewers, stay healthy, and we wish you well.
Take care, Paul. Stay safe.